welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
You're probably here because, like us, you want to get informed efficiently. You want to cut through all the noise and just grab the really valuable stuff.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do today.
We've got this really interesting collection of personal reflections, advice.
Yeah. Real world experiences.
And our mission, really, is just to boil it down. Find the actionable essentials for you pretty quickly.
Think of it like a concentrated shot of wisdom, based on what people actually did. We're going to hit on quite a range.
Definitely. Daily routines, getting organized.
Learning, personal growth, well-being, it's all in there, drawn from these firsthand accounts.
Precisely. And we're covering, everything from how people structure their mornings, stay on top of things, to hobbies, learning new stuff, handling time, health, relationships. It's quite broad.
It really is.
And what's great about using these personal stories is how grounded they are. This isn't just theory.
Right. It's practical. Stuff someone found worked for them. And we're aiming to pull out those key strategies, the things you might actually be able to use to make your own day-to-day, a bit better.
Okay, so let's jump right in. One thing that pops up again and again in these reflections is the power of routine and organization.
Yeah, that foundation.
Let's start right at the beginning of the day, the morning routine.
And what's interesting isn't just having one, but the specific bits and how they add up.
Like what?
Well, things like starting early and, crucially, getting right out of bed. No hitting snooze.
Seizing the momentum. I like that.
Yeah, instead of letting it just sort of drift away.
And it's funny, even making the bed gets mentioned. Seems small, right?
But it's framed as this immediate win, a little bit of order right away.
Sets the tone. Like a tiny domino falling for a productive day.
Exactly. And then it flows into the basics. Hygiene, hydration, which is surprisingly easy to forget.
Totally.
Then maybe some stretching, a decent breakfast, and importantly, doing it without staring at your phone.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is. And the benefits people mention, it's not just feeling awake, it's feeling organized, ready, focused, even calmer, starting the day positive.
Okay, so that structure helps. Now, staying organized day to day, that can feel huge, can it?
Yeah.
Especially with work, study, life.
It really can, and the sources offer some good pointers there, especially thinking about learning or managing big responsibilities.
Like using planners. That seems basic.
Well, yes, but the emphasis is on actively using them, like checking in regularly, updating them. It's not just writing stuff down once.
Okay, consistent engagement.
Right. And then there's the idea of weekly planning, sitting down and actually breaking big tasks into smaller steps with their own little deadlines.
So you don't just see this giant mountain of a project.
Exactly. It stops you feeling quite so overwhelmed.
That makes sense. Creating a roadmap. And I noticed the point about a tidy workspace, too.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but the idea is it reduces that mental clutter, You're not wasting energy looking for stuff.
Less cognitive load, I get that. Plus, the daily to-do list. But not just a list, right?
No, it's about prioritizing, deciding what really needs doing first. It forces focus.
And the payoff seems to be, well, more than just getting stuff done.
Definitely. People reported feeling less stressed, more in control, better time management, obviously, but also just, less anxiety. It's about building that sense of control.
Which flows perfectly into time management itself. The sources get pretty specific here.
They do, building on that organization piece. The prioritized daily list comes up again, naturally, but then adding time limits to tasks, sort of like little work sprints.
Right, creating a bit of urgency for yourself.
Yeah, seems to help with concentration.
Yeah.
And using that planner isn't just for appointments, but blocking out time for those specific tasks.
Okay, time blocking.
And then the big one, trying to avoid multitasking, really focusing on one thing.
Which is harder than it sounds sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. But the argument is it improves quality, reduces mistakes, and planning ahead, minimizing distractions, those are like the support system for that focus.
Well, it's not just about raw productivity, is it?
Not at all. It's about using your mental energy wisely. Full attention on one thing often means a better result. Planning clears the mental decks. Fewer distractions means you protect your focus.
So better work, maybe less stress.
And crucially, it creates space. Time to actually rest or do other things without that nagging feeling of unfinished business.
Yeah, that feeling. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about nurturing other parts of life? Interests, skills? The sources talk about hobbies not just being, trivial.
Right. They're framed as having multiple benefits. Take reading. It's not just escape. It's Exploring worlds, yes, but also personal development, like through self-help books. An adventure without leaving home, sort of.
And cooking, too. It's practical, obviously, but also creative.
Yeah, experimenting with flavors, unwinding. And it can be social, too, sharing what you make.
That's true.
And even something simple like walking in a park, it's exercise,
Yeah.
sure, but also mental space. Especially, they mention, if you pair it with a podcast or audiobook.
Adding layers to simple
Right.
activities. Intentionality.
Exactly.
So, beyond hobbies for enjoyment, what about actively learning new skills? Why did the sources stress this?
Well, the main reasons seem to be personal growth, boosting confidence, and just opening doors, more opportunities.
Opportunities like
Could be anything, really. Making travel richer, maybe new study paths, career shifts, or even just practical life stuff. Cooking, budgeting, time management skills that make you more independent.
and the advice for how to learn. It seemed pretty down to earth.
Very much so. Set specific goals, not just vague wishes. Practice consistently, that's huge. Little and often beats cramming.
Right.
Use different ways to learn, don't just stick to one book or video.
Right.
And maybe the biggest thing, see mistakes as learning. Not failure, just data.
Data points. I like that.
I like.
Okay, let's get specific. The sources talked about improving writing and communication.
Mm.
What were the tips for writing?
It was quite layered. Reading regularly seemed foundational, just absorbing different styles, words.
Input, basically.
Yeah. Then daily writing practice, even short bits, builds the muscle. Planning before you write, thinking it through first.
Structure.
Using clear language, getting your point across simply. And then, importantly, reviewing, editing, getting feedback if you can. It's a process.
Input, output, refinement. Makes sense. What about communication? That's vital everywhere.
Totally. And the focus was on it being two-way. Good listening is just as important as clear speaking.
Active listening.
Yeah, paying attention, showing interest, and when speaking. Clear, confident, simple language, being aware of your tone, your pace.
And body language, too.
That got mentioned, yes. Nonverbals matter. And just the basics, being respectful, polite, that underpins everything.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. Navigating learning, often framed as student life in the sources, but I think it applies much wider, right?
Oh, absolutely. Anyone learning intensely, tackling a big project, the principles are the same. The sources paint a picture of a structured day.
How so?
Balancing focused work, like classes or assignments, with active stuff, like taking good notes, maybe working with others.
Collaboration.
Right. And setting aside time to review, plan ahead. It's about creating a rhythm, not just reacting.
Avoiding that constant catch-up feeling.
Yeah. But what about staying motivated when things get tough or boring?
Good question. The advice seemed to be, anchor yourself to your why. Remember why you're doing it.
The bigger picture.
Exactly. Set small, achievable goals along the way. Get those little wins. Make learning fun if you can. Videos, real-world examples, whatever works.
Studying with friends.
That came up too.
Yeah.
Share the load. Get different perspectives. And crucially, acknowledge your progress. Pat yourself on the back for the small steps.
And the basic building blocks, good study habits.
Pretty standard but important stuff. A regular schedule, a dedicated quiet space, organized materials, taking effective notes, then using those notes, summarizing flashcards, practice questions, testing yourself.
Good recall. Yeah. And taking breaks, super important to avoid burnout. Plus, reviewing stuff regularly, not just cramming.
Spaced repetition, basically. Yeah. Okay. Now, underpinning all of this is well-being. We can't do much if we're run down. So sources cover a lot here.
They really do. Starting with the physical basics, balanced meals, fruit, veg, protein, hydration, regular movement, even just walking, yoga at home.
And sleep.
Absolutely. Getting enough sleep. These are like the cornerstones for everything else. They directly impact our mental and emotional state.
And managing stress. Such a big topic today. What practical tips came up?
Surprisingly simple, actionable things. Deep breath sounds cliche, but it works to calm the nervous system. Journaling to get thoughts out. Staying organized helps reduce that feeling of chaos. Taking proper breaks. Exercise is huge for stress.
Definitely.
Focusing on what you can control in a stressful situation. And talking to people. Leaning on your support system. It's a mix of strategies.
Building resilience.
Yeah.
What about self-confidence? How do the sources suggest building that?
A lot revolves around your internal dialogue. Positive self-talk, focusing on strengths, celebrating small wins.
Instead of just dwelling on mistakes.
Right. Setting those small, achievable goals, again, builds that feeling of competence. Stepping just outside your comfort zone regularly.
Expanding it slowly.
Yeah. Taking care of your appearance can help how you feel. Surrounding yourself with supportive people. And again, accepting mistakes as part of learning, not letting them define you.
And cultivating positivity,
Mm-hmm.
especially when things are tough.
Gratitude is a big one. Actively focusing on what you're thankful for. It shifts perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find lessons even in hard times. Spending time with positive people, it rubs off. Focusing on solutions, not just problems.
Taking breaks from negativity, too, like doom scrolling.
Yes. Prioritizing physical health supports positivity. And just trying to stay hopeful.
Okay, and finally, under well-being, self-care. It gets talked about a lot, but maybe misunderstood.
Yeah, the source emphasizes it's way more than just bubble baths,
Right.
It's about consistently looking after yourself. Getting enough sleep, good food, water, moving your body, doing things you actually enjoy. Setting boundaries, that's key.
Protecting your time and energy.
Exactly. And knowing when to just take a break without feeling guilty about it. It's about sustainable well-being.
Sustainable. Good word. Okay, let's shift to how we interact with others. Friendships. What makes a good friend, according to these reflections?
The core qualities really shine through. Kindness, being supportive through thick and thin, and being trustworthy, that came up a lot.
And how do you make those kinds of friends?
Be open, approachable, show genuine interest, really listen. Be kind, respectful. Avoid gossip that kills trust.
Mm-hmm.
Be reliable, keep your promises, respect privacy, and of course, spend quality time together. That builds the bond.
And taking it deeper, making friendships really meaningful.
Trust, respect, kindness still essential, but maybe a deeper level of listening, more empathy, consistent support. Quality time is still key.
And respecting differences.
Yes. Respecting differences, giving each other space when needed. It's about nurturing the relationship intentionally.
The sources also talk just about kindness itself. Why is that singled out?
It highlights how even small acts matter. They can change someone's day, make the world feel a bit better. Empathy is a big part of it, trying to understand others.
Helping without expecting payback.
Exactly. Patience, understanding, and being kind to yourself, too. That's part of creating a positive environment.
Makes sense. And building strong relationships, generally beyond just friends. What are the keys?
Trust and communication seem to be the absolute bedrock. Actively listening, expressing yourself honestly, openly.
Quality time again.
Yes, making time, showing appreciation, and just recognizing it takes ongoing effort from everyone involved. Relationships need tending.
Like a garden.
Mm.
And what about the benefits of helping others? Why is that highlighted?
It talks about the joy and purpose it brings, how it builds empathy, patience, strengthens relationships, communities.
Personal growth, too.
Yeah, and it creates this positive cycle. Helping often inspires more helping.
Okay, let's move into developing those core personal qualities. Goal setting comes up first. Why is that so fundamental?
Goals give you direction, right? Short term, long term. They help organize your effort, break big things down.
Makes them less scary.
Totally. Writing them down helps commitment. Reviewing progress keeps you on track. Achieving them feels good. And even setbacks are learning chances. Plus, it helps manage your time better. You focus on what matters for the goal.
Patience is next. Why is that so valued, especially now?
Because everything feels so fast, patience helps you stay calm, make better choices instead of just reacting.
Mm-hmm.
It's often needed for big goals, like learning a language that takes time. Improves relationships, too, allows you to listen, understand better.
Avoids regrettable snap decisions.
Exactly. It's seen as a kind of strength, fostering peace and focus.
Gratitude comes up again here, too. Why the strong emphasis?
It really shifts your focus from lack to appreciation, makes you value what you have.
Strengthening relationships by saying thanks.
Yeah, and the gratitude journal idea, a practical way to keep that positive focus. Research links it to less stress, more happiness, humility, motivation, lots of benefits.
And developing good habits. What's the core advice?
Start small, really small, manageable actions. Repeat them consistently. Slowly increase if you want.
Consistency is key.
Absolutely. And be patient. Habits take time to stick.
Honesty. Seems obvious, but why is it stressed for personal development?
It's the foundation of trust, isn't it? And feeling good about yourself, being truthful, admitting mistakes, standing by your beliefs.
Builds respect.
Yeah, respect, understanding leads to more real connections.
Self-discipline, often linked to success. What's the angle here?
It's what keeps you going when motivation dips. Helps you manage time, prioritize, resist distractions.
Consistency over relying on feeling motivated.
Exactly. It leads to achievement, which builds pride and confidence.
And patience gets another mention near the end. Why the repeat?
Probably because it's so countercultural now. In a fast world, the source seems to say, hang on, this quality is still vital. For staying calm, learning skills properly, handling difficult people or situations, maintaining relationships, reducing stress, it's crucial.
Okay. And the final quality discussed is consistency. Sum that up for us.
The main message is small actions done repeatedly add up massively over time. Think fitness, skills, habits, big goals.
The power of compounding effort.
Precisely. It builds routines, discipline, it shows steady progress, often beats flashy, inconsistent bursts, just showing up day after day.
Wow. Okay, that was quite the journey through these reflections. An incredible amount of practical stuff in there.
It really is. And you see these themes weaving through, don't you? The value of structure, continuous learning, definitely prioritizing well-being.
Fostering those positive connections.
And cultivating those core personal qualities, patience, honesty, discipline, and consistency.
So for you listening, maybe just take a second. Did one or two things really stand out? Maybe that idea of a deliberate morning routine?
Or perhaps breaking down big tasks.
Yeah. Just think, is there one small thing from all this that you could maybe try to weave into your own life? Just one to start.
And maybe this has sparked some curiosity for you. Perhaps you want to look more into time management or finally pick up that hobby. Remember, it's all a journey, this personal growth stuff.
It really is. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. How might those small, consistent things you do today, the ones that seem almost insignificant, how might they be shaping a much more positive future for you down the line, even if you can't see the full picture yet?
Something to ponder.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
You know that moment when you're speaking English and you feel like you've got the grammar right, the words are there, but somehow the other person isn't quite getting it.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, isn't it, when all that effort doesn't quite land in a real conversation.
Exactly. And that feeling, that gap, is really what we're digging into today. We've got some great material focusing on a really effective technique to help boost your pronunciation.
We're doing a deep dive into shadowing.
Yeah.
It's basically training your ear and mouth by actively copying how native English speakers actually talk.
Right.
And the sources we're using today, they're full of practical examples. We'll break down some of those, subtle but really crucial bits of American English pronunciation from a few different speakers.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is pretty straightforward, but it's important. We want to give you some actionable insights so you can really level up your pronunciation and, just be understood more easily.
Sounds good.
All right, let's jump into our first example. This comes from a speaker named Carla. This started a very sustainable practice that has lasted hundreds of years, and it's still there today.
Okay.
And the context here is about this really interesting sustainable method for creating salt, just using the sun.
Right. And what's interesting right off the bat is how she says words that might seem simple, like started. You might expect a really crisp T sound, right? But listen closely. Often it softens, almost becoming like a D sound. Started.
Started, yeah, I hear that.
And that id ending. Often it's pronounced like id. The softening of the sometimes it's called a flap T. That happens a lot between vowels in American English, especially when the next vowel isn't stressed. It helps things flow.
That flow thing is key, isn't it? And then there's sustainable. What should we listen for there?
Well, pay attention to the vowels, but also the emphasis. It's sustainable. The stress is right there in the middle.
Sustainable. Got it. Okay, now, what about in the phrase practice that has lasted? What's happening with the has?
Perfect example of reduction in, faster speech. The word the, especially before a consonant sound, like in has, often just becomes a quick, short sound, almost the.
Right.
And the T at the end of that, often it's what we call a stopped T. You put your tongue there for the T, but you don't release the air puff. So that has sounds more like the has.
The has. It's subtle, but I can see how that speeds things up.
Exactly. These little things really add up.
And we see something similar with lasted, right? Like started.
Precisely. That T can soften to a D sound, lasted. Again, with that T'd ending.
Okay, so thinking about the whole sentence rhythm, where does Carla put the main emphasis?
She really stresses started, very sustainable practice, and hundreds. Those are the words carrying the main meaning there.
Okay, so you've heard the breakdown. Why don't you try saying it aloud now? This started a very sustainable practice that has lasted hundreds of years. Feel those T sounds.
Good practice.
Okay, let's move to our second bit from Carla. All those different colors come from different mineral compositions, coming from the different regions.
Okay, what jumps out here is definitely the repetition.
Yeah, different and come from show up multiple times.
Which is great. It gives us a chance to really focus on how they're pronounced consistently.
So let's hone in on different. You need that clear flef sound, right? Top teeth, bottom lip.
Yep, definitely. But what about the very end, that final T in different?
Let me guess. Another stopped T.
You got it. It's different.
Yeah.
Your tongue goes sub for the T, but there's no big puff of air. It's not different.
Different. Okay. And come from. Anything special there?
Well, it's common, but just listen to how the sounds link smoothly together when she says it naturally. It's not choppy.
Right. Now, emphasis in this longer sentence. What gets highlighted?
What's interesting is how the words right after different get the stress.
Ah, so colors.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Colors, mineral compositions, and regions. It helps distinguish what kind of different things she's talking about.
That makes sense. Highlighting the specifics.
Precisely.
All right, listener, your turn. Try saying this. All those different colors come from different mineral compositions coming from the different regions. Focus on that different and the emphasized words after it.
Good. Next up from Carla.
Yep, another short one. Oh, our whole family is, they're all about the salts.
Okay, looks simple, but yeah, lots of conversational features packed in here. Let's take our whole family is. How about the word our? Does it always sound the same?
Not always. Sometimes it's clearer, like oh. Other times it feels quicker, like our.
Exactly. Slower speech might give you that clear our air, but faster often reduces to just are. And the end of family is.
I think I hear a Z sound. Family is.
Spot on. The air's is almost always buzzes like a Z after a vowel sound. Family is. Now she says there twice. Contraction for they are. How does it sound in fast speech?
Oh, it often sounds just like there. T-H-E-R-E. It's a common reduction.
Very common. The vowel gets a bit lazy.
Yeah.
Then all about the salt. What do you notice?
Stopped T's again. On about and salt.
You're getting good at spotting those. Yes. Listen for a bow and sal. Tongue moves, but no air release.
A bow, sal. Okay. And the emphasis here.
Seems to be on whole family, all, and salt. Those are the key ideas.
Makes sense. All right, give it a try. Oh, our whole family is, they're all about the salts. Hear how those little changes make it flow?
Mm-hmm. They really do.
Okay, let's switch gears. We've got some examples from Brandy now. First sentence. So some people try and sell on their own, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and then they connect with a realtor. We'll focus just on the first bit.
Yeah.
Some people try and sell on their own.
Okay. And first, maybe just a quick note on grammar. Try and sell.
Right. You hear that a lot instead of the more correct try to sell.
Exactly. Very common in spoken English. Now, pronunciation, people. What happens to that middle sound?
It kind of disappears, doesn't it? Like people.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
People. That vowel sound gets reduced when it's not stressed.
Okay. And try and sell. How does and usually sound when linking like this?
Very often just reduces to N, like try and sell, really common connector.
Try and sell. Got it. And lastly, on their own. Anything about own.
That whip sound at the start of own can get pretty weak, almost lost. Not totally gone, but less obvious than you might think.
Okay. And the emphasis in some people try and sell on their own?
I'd say it falls on try, sell, and own. The key actions in the state.
Right, the core message. Okay, try this one. So some people try and sell on their own. Notice those reductions making it sound more conversational.
Definitely.
Our next sentence from Brandy. For buyers, the buyers don't actually have to pay anything out of pocket. The seller pays the commission. We're going to zoom in on. The buyers don't actually have to pay anything out of pocket.
Okay, this one's loaded with good stuff. Let's start with don't. Remember those negative contractions ending in T.
Stopped T again. Don't.
Exactly. Tongue up, no air. Now, actually, how does that sound?
It can sound different ways, can't it? Sometimes clearer, sometimes more like, actually.
Precisely. You might hear A-C-T-U-L-E, but very often it reduces to A-C-T-shuli, or even faster, just H-ly. Lots of vowel reduction, those little schwa sounds.
Actually, okay. And have to. That feels like a classic reduction.
Well, absolutely. Have to almost always becomes have to, or even have to in really quick speed.
Have to, okay. Then anything.
Listen to that first vowel. Often it's not a clear, but more of a short in thing.
Anything. Right. And the key phrase, out of pocket. What happens between out and of?
There it is again. Our friend the flap T. That T is between two vowel sounds, so it turns into a quick D sound. Uda.
Uda, pocket. Got it. An emphasis here. The buyers don't actually have to pay anything out of pocket.
I hear the stress on buyers, pay, anything, and pocket. highlighting who, what action, what amount, and where from.
Makes sense. All right, this is a bit longer, but give it a shot. The buyers don't actually have to pay anything out of pocket. Try to link those sounds.
Good one. Now moving on to our third speaker, Gail.
Yes, Gail. First sentence. It's a lot about your vision and being mindful and exploring, and so they kind of weave together in some ways. Let's focus on it's a lot about your vision.
Okay. It's a lot. What do you hear on lot?
Stop T. A lot.
Yep. And about.
Same thing. About. That unreleased T.
Perfect. Now, your. How does that often sound in faster speech?
It gets reduced, right? More like you.
Exactly. A much quicker vowel. And the main word here, vision.
Vision. I feel a vibration at the start. VVV.
Good. You should feel that for the V.
Yeah.
Then short ev vowels inside and that short ending. Vision.
Okay. And the emphasis in it's a lot about your vision.
Seems to fall on lot and vision.
Right.
Highlighting the quantity and the subject.
Okay. Say it aloud. It's a lot about your vision. Catch those stop T's and the reduced your.
Mm-hmm. Next one from Gail.
Yes. Sitting in, I had never sat so much my whole life. It takes a toll on you.
No.
Oh, I knew it was. We're just focusing on the middle part. It takes a toll on you.
Okay. It takes. Notice how the stopped T at the end of it links really smoothly into the T at the start of takes.
Ah, yeah. It's not it takes. It's more like it takes.
Exactly. That linking is key for flow. Now, a toll on you. Those O sounds.
Yeah.
They can be tricky.
Yeah, English O sounds are varied.
They really are. Toll has one kind of O sound. On often has a slightly different, maybe less rounded vowel, and U often gets that more rounded, puckered U sound. It's all about subtle lip shape changes.
Interesting.
Try saying it, maybe even exaggerate the lip movements a bit at first. It takes a toll on you. Feel the difference in those O shapes.
Get that. Yeah, I can feel that. Okay, our last example from Gail. You think about all this negativity and don't realize, like, that has a lot of implications down the road. So that has a lot of implications down the road. We're focusing on the second instance. That has a lot of implications down the road.
Okay, we've seen that and a lot before stop T's likely.
Right, what about has a lot?
Well, the S in has will sound like Z because it's between vowels. Huzzah! And again, the stop T on lot connects it smoothly. Huzzah!
Has a lot. Okay. Now, implications. That's a longer word.
Yeah, listen for the stress. It's on the third syllable.
Yeah.
Impliciations, and try to hear the clear vowels in that stressed syllable.
Impliciations. Got it. And the phrase down the road.
I think it's special there. Well, in really natural flowing speech, that final D sound in road can become quite soft, almost disappears. Down the row.
Down the row. Huh?
It's not wrong to say the D, but often it softens. The main thing is the overall rhythm of the phrase.
Okay, let's try the whole thing with a natural rhythm that has a lot of implications down the road. Can you feel how all those little points work together?
It really shows how these features combine, doesn't it?
It really does. Wow, we've covered quite a bit today, focusing on those stopped T's, the flap T, where T sounds like D, reductions in vowels and consonants, how words link together smoothly.
Right, and also the importance of emphasis and rhythm, getting the music of the language.
And as we heard, these aren't rare things. These are super common features you'll hear in everyday American English conversation.
Absolutely. They're happening all the time.
Well, thank you for actively participating in this deep dive with us. It really makes a difference. And remember, that core technique we talked about, shadowing, actively copying native speakers, it's just incredibly powerful for improving your pronunciation.
Yeah, we really hope you'll now maybe approach listening to English with a slightly more analytical ear. Start noticing these patterns, breaking down sentences you hear.
Definitely. And here's maybe a final thought to leave you with. Pay really close attention when you hear native speakers talking. Don't just listen to the words, listen to how they say them. And then in your own practice, actively try to imitate that pronunciation. Think about how these small, subtle shifts we discussed today can really impact how clear and natural you sound.
It's an ongoing process, but definitely worth the effort. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ever feel like your English is pretty clear, but actually understanding conversations, like in real life, still a bit tricky sometimes?
Yeah, that's a common feeling.
Well, today we're going to dive deep into a really powerful technique for that. It's all about improving your pronunciation using something called shadowing.
That's right, shadowing. It's basically learning by listening and, well, imitating. Copying native English speakers.
Like mimicking them.
Exactly. You're kind of training your mouth to make the same shapes and sounds.
Okay. And our mission here for this deep dive is to pull out some, concrete Really actionable steps you can use right away to boost your pronunciation.
And we'll do that by looking at real examples, native speakers talking naturally.
We've got some great source material lined up for this.
Yeah, we do. Excerpts from an English lesson, actually. You'll hear different American English speakers. Vanessa, Carla, Brandy, Gail. Real speech.
Perfect. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with a sentence from Carla. She says, "This started a very sustainable practice that has lasted hundreds of years."
Right. Even in just that one sentence, there's quite a bit to notice about how English really sounds.
Okay, like what? Let's break it down.
Well, first word, started, that ed ending. It's not always a clear ed sound, you know, especially when the main verb part ends in a t sound, like start. That T often softens. It becomes more like a D sound.
Why does it do that?
It's often about flow. Your tongue's already kind of near that position, so started is just a bit easier, maybe smoother to say than started.
Started. Okay, I think I hear that. It's subtle, though.
It is, but important. Now, what about sustainable? That's a longer one.
Yeah, where's the emphasis there?
Good question. It falls on the second syllable. Sustainable.
Sustainable. Got it.
And those other vowel sounds, like in sus and able, they often get reduced. They soften to what linguists call a schwa, that kind of neutral sound.
So more like sustainable.
Pretty much, yeah. It helps through them. Keeps it flowing.
Okay. And then there are those little words that has lasted. What happens there?
Good catch. They has. First, the T at the end of that. It's very often what we call a stopped T in American English.
A stopped T. We've talked about that before, haven't we?
Yeah, I have. You put your tongue up for the T, but you don't release the puff of air, so it's very short. That T has.
Like you cut it off early.
Kind of, yeah. You stop the airflow. And the word the before consonant, like in the practice, often gets reduced to the.
Right, the practice. And what about the has part?
Notice the es sound on has. It's often a Z sound. Has. So that T has.
Okay, stopped T, Z sound. Lots going on. And the end of the sentence lasted hundreds of years. That id ending again.
Exactly. Same pattern as started. The T in lasted often softens to a D sound too.
So lasted.
Lasted. It's that same principle. Makes it smoother to say.
So for everyone listening, a key takeaway here is watching those past tense ed endings, especially after T sounds. They often become ed with the D sound.
Definitely. And that stop T is super common too.
Now, if you were saying that whole sentence naturally, which words would kind of stand out? Give more emphasis.
You'd likely stress the words carrying the main meaning. So, started, definitely. Then very sustainable practice. And hundreds.
Why those?
Well, they highlight the key ideas, the beginning, the nature of the practice, long-lasting, and the duration. Started, very sustainable practice, hundreds of years.
Okay, that makes sense. It gives it a rhythm. Let's hear another one from Carla. This time about colors. All those different colors come from different mineral compositions coming from different regions. Whoa, lots of different vintages.
Ah, yes, quite a few. And different itself is a great word to focus on.
How so?
Well, first, make sure you get that clear F sound, different.
Okay.
And then that final T, just like in that or lasted. Oh, well, maybe not lasted, but like that or lot. It's often a stopped T again.
So not different with the big puff of air.
Exactly. More like your tongue stops the sound.
Okay. And she uses the phrase come from multiple times.
Yeah.
Anything special there?
Well, phrasal verbs like come from often link together smoothly. The M in come might connect a bit to the F in from, come from. Not usually a big gap between them.
Right. It flows. Now, with different colors, different mineral compositions, different regions, where does the stress fall?
Interestingly, the emphasis tends to land on the word right after different. It highlights what is different.
Ah, so colors, mineral compositions, and regions get the emphasis.
Precisely. It helps you quickly grasp the distinct categories she's talking about.
Got it. So another takeaway for you listening, nail that different pronunciation, clear F, stopped T, and listen for how emphasis often follows it to highlight the key info.
Exactly.
Okay, one more from Carla. Our whole family they're all about the salts. Short and sweet.
But still packed with useful stuff. Let's start with our whole family is. Listen to our. How does that sound?
In fast speech, it can almost sound just like the letter R, can't it?
Yeah, I got it. Very common reduction. Our whole family, and the is at the end. Family is.
What about it?
That final is sound. It's often voiced, meaning it sounds like a Z. Family is.
Family is. Okay, subtle, but it's there. And the next part, they're all about the salt. They're
Contraction of they are. But how's it pronounced?
It sounds just like there. T-H-E-R-E, the place word.
Exactly the same. A
Yeah.
homophone in spoken English. Very common. They're all about.
Good to know. And then all about the salt. Those T sounds at the end of about and salt.
Ah, more stop T's. Very frequent offenders.
Huh. Offenders?
Yeah, well, frequent occurrences. Tongue goes up, stops the air.
Okay, so practicing this one. Emphasize whole family, all. Salt. Remember, R can sound like R, is, ins, is. There sounds like there. And stop those T's in about and salt.
You've got it. It really is like piecing together these little sound details. That's what shadowing helps you internalize.
Okay, let's switch speakers.
Yeah.
Moving on to Brandy. She says, some people try and sell on their own. Try and sell.
Ah, yes, that's an interesting one. Grammatically, teachers often say try to sell. But in spoken English, especially casual American or British English, try and plus a verb is super, super common. Perfectly natural sounding.
So don't be thrown off if you hear it.
Not at all. No, pronunciation-wise. People. How's that sound?
People. Like the second vowel is really weak.
Exactly. That second syllable often reduces to a schwa or something very close. People, not people.
Okay. And try and sell. You said it's common, but how does the and sound when smushed in like that?
It often gets reduced right down to just an N sound attached to the try.
So
Try and sell. Runs together smoothly.
makes it faster.
Yeah.
Okay. And the end on their own.
Listen to own. Sometimes that W sound glide at the end is quite soft. Not a strong O-W-N, but more like ooh, and the W is there, just subtle.
Gentle W. Okay, so shadowing Brandy here.
Yeah.
Stress, try, sell, own. Notice people, try and sell, and that softer ending on own.
Right. Recognizing these reductions is key to understanding fast speech and eventually using them yourself if you want to sound more native-like.
Brandy's next sentence is longer. The buyers don't actually have to pay anything out of pocket. Okay, let's break this one down.
Sure. Starting with don't. What happens to that T?
Stop T again.
Bingo. Just like we heard before. Don't. Very common for negative contractions.
Got it. What about actually? Looks like it should be 3 syllables.
It is, but in fast speech, it often gets squished. You might hear it like actually or even actually.
Wow. Actually.
Yeah, that middle part kind of blends and the first vowel weakens.
Okay.
Yeah, then have to pay. Have to. Another super common reduction, it almost always becomes have to in conversation.
Have to.
Yeah, have to pay. Much smoother than have to pay.
Have to pay. Okay, I can hear that. Anything.
Similar to actually, that first syllable often weakens. Sounds more like anything.
Anything. Okay. And the final bit, out of pocket.
Yeah.
Sounds like a classic case for that other T sound.
The flap T, yes. When a T comes between 2 vowel sounds, like in, out of, it often flaps. It sounds very much like a quick D.
So out of becomes out.
Exactly. Out us, making the whole phrase sound like out pocket.
Out pocket. Okay. So this sentence is loaded. Stopped T in don't, reduced actually, have to, becomes hafta. Weak first syllable in anything.
Yeah.
And the flap T in out of.
See, it's these combinations of features that make up natural speech flow. You emphasize buyers, pay, anything, pocket, and all these little adjustments happen around them.
It really is a pronunciation treasure map.
It is, and shadowing helps you follow it.
All right, let's move to our final speaker, Gail. Her first sentence. It's a lot about your vision.
Okay, short one. It's a lot. We've seen lot before. What's the T doing?
Stopped T.
You're getting good at this.
Yeah.
Stop T on lot. A lot.
Okay, and about your vision.
About also often gets that stopped T. That T. And your, in faster speech, it often reduces a bit.
How so?
The vowel sound can change slightly, sounding more like your vision.
Your vision, right?
Yeah.
Vision itself. Any tricky sounds?
Vision has 2 voiced fricatives. The V at the start, V, feel the vibration.
VVV, yeah.
And the CO part makes a sound, like in measure or pleasure. Z, also voiced.
Okay, vision.
And a short vowel sound in there. Vision. So even in it's a lot about your vision, we've got stop T's, a reduced your, and those vibrating V in sounds.
Yep. Every sentence has these little features.
Gail's next one. It takes a toll on you.
Okay. It takes that T at the end of it can link right into the T at the beginning of takes.
How does that sound?
Almost like one slightly longer held T sound. T takes. You don't necessarily say 2 separate T's. It links.
It takes. Okay, smooth connection. You mentioned vowels before.
Yes. A toll on you.
Yeah.
Listen to the O sounds. Toll often has a rounder OO. On can be a more open OA or O, depending on accent.
Yeah.
And U has that U sound with puckered lips.
toll on you. Wow, yeah, they are different, aren't they? Even though they look similar on paper.
Exactly. Vowel sounds can be subtle, but really important for clarity and sounding natural. Shadowing helps train your ear for these differences. Okay, final example from Gail. That has a lot of implications down the road. Feels like a summary sentence, bringing things together.
It kind of does. Let's see. That,
Stop T.
got it, has a lot.
Si seonan has. Stop T on lot.
Perfect. Implications. Longer word.
Okay, where's the stress? Implaciations. Third syllable.
Exactly right. Implaciations, getting the stress right is crucial for longer words.
And the end. Down the road.
That final D in road. Similar to the stop T, final D sounds can often be softened or devoiced or even stopped, especially in American English.
So not a big, strong road.
Often not, no. It might be very soft. Road, again, contributing to that smoother flow.
So this sentence wraps up stop T's, linking, stress patterns, and softened final consonants.
Pretty much sums up a lot of what we've heard, yeah. It all works together to create that natural rhythm.
Wow. Okay, this has been genuinely eye-opening, looking so closely at how native speakers actually talk. It really highlights the power of shadowing.
Absolutely. And the main takeaway for you listening is that shadowing, really actively listening and then trying to imitate, it's such an effective strategy.
It's way more than just like repeating words from a list.
Oh, definitely. It's about catching those nuances, right? The stopped sounds, the reductions like hafta, the linking, the flap T, the rhythm, the intonation, all of it.
And focusing on those things is what can really help you sound more natural and, just as importantly, make it easier for others to understand you.
Which leads us to a final thought, really a question for you. How can you start weaving shadowing into your own English learning routine actively?
Yeah, think about it. What kind of audio interests you? Podcasts, maybe? Interviews? YouTube clips?
Find something you enjoy listening to, and then don't just listen, shadow. Try to mimic the speaker.
Not just the words, but the music of the language, right? The rhythm, the ups and downs.
Exactly. Capture the flow, the connections, those little pronunciation details we've talked about today.
So the challenge is, find some audio, hit play, and start shadowing. You might actually surprise yourself how much it helps your pronunciation and your understanding over time. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really focusing in on something lots of you struggle with. English pronunciation.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We've got this great English lesson transcript here. It's just packed with practical tips for speaking more clearly. Our mission today is to pull out the absolute best advice for you, stuff you can use right away.
It's that common frustration, isn't it? You know the grammar, you've got the vocabulary, but somehow you're still not quite being understood the way you want.
Exactly. It's like, why isn't this landing?
Well, this lesson highlights a really powerful technique, shadowing, basically copying native speakers. We're going to break down how this lesson suggests using it effectively.
Okay, sounds good. So let's dive in. The lesson starts with a conversation with someone called Carla. And right off the bat, the instructor talks about needing to participate actively, speaking aloud.
Yes, absolutely. That's crucial. The lesson makes it clear that just listening isn't enough. You have to actually hear yourself saying the sounds, mimicking the native speaker.
It engages different parts of the brain, I guess, and like the muscles.
Precisely. It's about building that muscle memory for the sounds. And what's great is how they immediately apply it to real sentences.
Yeah, they jump right in. The first sentence they look at is, this started a very sustainable practice that has lasted hundreds of years. And even in just that one sentence, there's quite a bit going on pronunciation-wise. They start with started.
Right. And they point out how that T sound often becomes more like a D sound in the middle, so it sounds a bit like started.
Started, okay, and the ending. The ed.
It's pronounced like a separate little syllable, lay, like started. That Tito D thing is super common in American English, by the way.
Right, between vowels or after a vowel sometimes.
Exactly. And that ord ending for verbs ending in T or D sounds, that's just a standard rule. But then they get to that has.
Yeah, yes, the stop T in that. Okay, I've heard this term, but what is a stop T? How do you actually do it? It feels weird to just stop a sound.
It does feel weird at first, but think of it like this. You get your tongue in position to make the tet sound, tip of the tongue, right behind your top teeth. Okay? But you just don't release the puff of air, you cut it off. So in that has, your tongue goes up for the T, but then you move right into the H of has without the two sounds.
So it's like the intention of the T is there, but not the full sound.
Exactly. It's subtle, but it makes speech flow much more smoothly. It's a real marker of natural American English. They also mention the vowel in that can sometimes be a short scent sound, like thit.
Interesting. Okay, so thit has, and then lasted, follows the same pattern as started, right? T becomes D-like, and you get that ABBA ending.
Correct. Last died.
And finally, emphasis. They say started. Very sustainable practice, and hundreds get the stress. Why is that important?
Well, emphasis is like the punctuation of spoken language, isn't it? It guides the listener. It tells you what the most important bits of information are.
So here it highlights the start of something sustainable that went on for hundreds of years.
Precisely. It draws your ear to the core message.
Okay, so the takeaway here is, actually say the sentence. This started a very sustainable practice that has lasted hundreds of years. Focus on those T to D sounds, the sopped T, the T'd endings, and the stress.
Absolutely. Repeat it. Focus on one element at a time, maybe. That deliberate practice is what shadowing is all about.
Then they move to the next sentence. All those different colors come from different mineral compositions, coming from different regions.
And here the focus is on that word different.
Right. They say make the F sound clear, and then guess what? Another stop T at the end.
See? It pops up everywhere.
So it's like different, with a sharp stop.
Exactly. And the lesson uses the fact that different is repeated 3 times here.
Good point.
As a chance to really practice and nail that pronunciation. They also mention come from as a phrasal verb.
And the emphasis, again, here it's on the words after different colors, mineral compositions, regions.
Yeah, highlighting the specific types of differences. So again, the action is practice this sentence. Listen for that F and the stopped T in different and feel the rhythm.
Okay, the third example is shorter, 2 sentences. Our whole family is. They're all about the salts.
Couple of things here.
First, our. They say in fast speech it can sound more like softer, just R.
Yep, another example of reduction in unstressed words. Very common. Helps things flow.
And then family is. It ends with a Z sound, not S. Why is that?
It's called voicing. The sound before the S, the long Eisen in family, is voiced, meaning your vocal cords vibrate. That vibration carries over, turning the voiceless S into a voiced Z. Family is.
Okay. Then that's just the contraction of they are, sounding like a.
Standard reduction.
And all about the salt. More stop T's. In about and in salt.
Totally other comment.
So,
and they even point out the vowel in salt. It's an O sound, like in caught or bought, not salt.
yes, tolt.
Got it.
And the stress. Whole family, all, and salt.
Right. Highlighting the key concepts.
So for these, we practice our whole family is. They're all about the salts. Listening for that reduced R, the Z, and is there the stopped T's and that alt and salt.
You got it. Lots of little details that add up.
Definitely. Okay, let's move to the next part. This involves a conversation with Brandy, and it focuses more on reductions and linking.
Yeah, how words squish together or change in natural speech.
The first sentence is, some people try and sell on their own. And there's a quick grammar note here first. Try and sell.
Ah, yes. The instructor points out that while try to sell is, technically the standard in writing,
Right.
in everyday spoken English, hearing try and sell is incredibly common. Just a feature of informal speech.
Good to know. But pronunciation-wise, they focus on people, saying the long AE sound isn't always super clear. It can sound more like people.
Yeah, people, the vowel sound in that unstressed second syllable gets reduced, and then and in try and sell just becomes N.
Like try and sell.
Exactly. That reduction of and to N happens all the time when we're linking verbs or items in a list. Makes it much smoother.
And own. They say the dewy sound might be less clear.
Sometimes it's not fully pronounced. The stress in this sentence is on try, sell, and own.
Okay, so practice. Some people try and sell on their own, focusing on that N sound for and the way people and own can sound.
Perfect. Now the next sentence is a bit longer, more complex. The buyers don't actually have to pay anything out of pocket.
Whoa, okay. A lot going on there. Where do we start?
Let's break it down. First, don't. Often, that final T is dropped, another stopped T.
Of course, okay, don't.
Then actually, this often gets really reduced. Sounds more like equally?
Actually, wow, that's quite different from actually.
It is.
Yeah.
Recognizing these reductions is so important for understanding fast speech.
Definitely. What's next?
Have to. Very commonly squishes down to hafta.
Hafta. Okay, that's another big one. Buyers don't have to.
Exactly. Then anything. The first vowel can weaken, almost like anything.
Right. And the last bit, out of.
Here we get that flap T again, because the T in out is between 2 vowel sounds, ow and ha.
Ah, so it becomes flap T because it's between vowels, and the second vowel is unstressed.
Precisely. So out of sounds like audu V.
Out of E pocket. Okay. Buyers don't actually have to pay anything out of e-pocket.
You're getting it. And the emphasis falls on buyers pay anything and pocket.
So for this longer one, the practice involves the stop T in don't, the big reduction in actually have to, the weak vowel in anything, and the flap T in out of. Phew.
It's a workout, but breaking it down shows you why native speech can sound fast or unclear sometimes. It's these predictable patterns.
Makes sense. All right, final section. This involves Gail focusing on natural phrasing and expressions. First up, it's a lot about your vision.
Okay, fairly straightforward to start. It's the contraction, it's.
Then a lot.
Yeah.
Stop T on lot, and about, another stop T. They're everywhere.
They really are fundamental to the rhythm, and your often gets reduced to J.
Like your. It's a lot about your vision, and vision itself.
Clearer V sound, shorter vowels. Vision, emphasis here is on lot in vision.
So practice, it's a lot about your vision, hitting those stop T's and the reduced your.
Exactly. Next sentence, it takes a toll on you.
Here they mention linking it takes. The stop T in it blends into takes.
The tongue goes up for the T in it, but because takes starts with a consonant, there's no real release of air, just a smooth connection it takes.
Okay. They also mention the vowel sounds. In toll, on you.
Yeah, just noting the subtle differences. The O in toll, the slightly different vowel in on, and the rounded UZ sound in you. These nuances add to the natural sound.
So practice, it takes a toll on you, feeling that link and listening for the vowel sounds.
Right. And the last sentence for a deep dive, that has a lot of implications down the road.
Okay. That stopped T again.
You know it.
Has a lot. We've got the Z sound in has because it follows a vowel, and another stop T on lot.
Correct on both counts. Then the word implications just needs clear syllable pronunciation. Implications.
And down the road. They mentioned the final D in road can be softened or almost dropped, like another stop consonant.
Yeah, final T and D sounds often get reduced or unreleased in casual speech, especially before a pause. It contributes to that smooth, connected feeling.
So the focus here is on the whole flow.
Exactly. The rhythm of the sentence, the stopped consonants, the Z sound, putting it all together.
So practice that has a lot of implications down the road, listening for those stop sounds and the overall rhythm.
Absolutely. And look, if you consistently work on these specific things we've pulled out, shadowing, listening for, and trying, stopped ETs, flap Ts, reductions like hafta, linking words together.
Even just with short phrases.
Even with short phrases, you will start to notice a real difference in how clear you sound and probably how much more confident you feel speaking.
So to wrap up for everyone listening,
Yeah.
Think about this. Getting a handle on these, well, sometimes tiny pronunciation details isn't just about making your own speech better understood.
No, it's a two-way street.
Right. It actually sharpens your ear for listening, too. When you start recognizing these patterns, the stop Ts, the reductions, the linking in how native speakers talk.
Suddenly, those fast conversations might start to sound a little less like a blur, right? You can pick out the words more easily because you understand the shortcuts and connections they're using.
Exactly. So here's something to think about. How might focusing on producing these sounds actually improve your comprehension of spoken English in real-time conversations?
It's an interesting feedback loop. Keep exploring, keep experimenting with these techniques. It really does make a difference on your whole English journey.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. You've shared some really interesting sources about really boosting your English conversation skills. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today.
Yeah, the goal seems pretty clear, doesn't it?
It is. We want to pull out the most practical tips, the real insights from this material, just to help you build confidence and, fluency when you're actually talking to people in English.
And what really jumps out is this idea that sometimes sounding more fluent means letting go of those strict classroom rules.
Exactly. Embracing how people really speak. Plus, we'll get into some essential questions and answers you can use in, well, all sorts of everyday situations.
That tension between the formal rules and real-world usage is fascinating. It suggests effective communication isn't always about textbook perfection.
Right. It's often more about being clear, sounding natural.
Spot on. Even if the grammar isn't, technically flawless by old standards.
Okay, so let's dive into these classroom English rules first. The ones that fluent speakers often, well, bend or break when they're just talking.
That's good.
The first one that stood out was that very formal question. To whom am I speaking?
Ah, yes. That's a perfect example. Grammatically correct, absolutely.
But you basically never hear it, do you?
Almost never in a casual chat. It sounds quite stiff, maybe even a little old-fashioned.
Yeah, the sources point out You're much, much more likely to hear something like, who am I speaking with?
Or even just a quick, who's this? Especially on the phone.
Right. And the point is, conversational English often goes for what feels natural, what gets the meaning across quickly.
Even if it breaks another rule, like you mentioned.
Oh yeah, the source notes that who am I speaking with technically ends with a preposition, which is another classic no-no from some grammar books.
Exactly. It just highlights how language evolves, doesn't it? Rules relax over time based on actual usage.
It really does. Okay, so that leads nicely into the second broken rule, subject-verb agreement, specifically with there is and there are.
Mm-hmm. We learn correctly that you should say, there are a lot of problems with this plan, because problems is plural.
Makes perfect grammatical sense. Logical.
It does, but listen out for it. You will hear there's a lot of problems constantly.
All the time.
That contraction, theirs, which is short for there is, gets used with plural nouns so frequently in everyday speech, especially when people are talking quickly.
It almost feels like a reflex, doesn't it? It just comes out easier, even if you know it's technically are.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a linguistic shortcut that native speakers barely even register. Fluency often involves these little efficiencies.
Okay, so rule number 3. This one's about the subjunctive tense. If I were...
Ah, the subjunctive, used for hypothetical or unreal situations.
The classic example is always something like, if I were from France, I would speak French. Sounds very proper.
And it is the grammatically correct form for hypotheticals like that, but
as the sources say, you're much more likely to hear people say, if I was from France, I would speak French.
far more often, yes. If I was just feels and sounds more common in everyday conversation. The subjunctive can feel a bit formal, maybe even a bit literary sometimes.
It can, yeah. Although, interestingly, the source mentioned an exception.
It did. The phrase, I wouldn't do that if I were you, or if I was you, used as a warning. Apparently, both forms are pretty much equally common and accepted in that specific context.
Huh. That's useful to know. So in that one fixed phrase, both are okay.
Seems like it. Okay, moving on. Rule number 4 deals with the past perfect tense.
Right, like using I had thought. The example given was, before I started learning English, I had thought it was impossible.
Okay, so the past perfect had thought technically shows an action completed before another past action, started learning. It sets a clear timeline.
But again, in reality, we tend to simplify.
We often do. The source highlights that you're much more likely to hear, before I started learning English, I thought it was impossible, just using the simple past.
Yeah, that sounds more like how I'd actually say it.
Exactly. The simple past often does the job perfectly well in conversation, especially if the context makes the order of events clear anyway. It's another nod towards simplicity in spoken language.
Less is more, sometimes. Why add the had if thought works fine?
Okay, fifth and final broken rule for this section, and this one feels really common, is prepositions at the end of sentences.
The famous rule allegedly imported from Latin grammar.
Yeah. The example of the correct but awkward form was, in which car do you want to go?
Which, let's be honest, sounds incredibly unnatural, almost robotic.
Totally. The source nails it. The natural way is obviously which car do you want to go in. Ending with in feels completely normal.
It is completely normal. And that anecdote they included about the Harvard student.
Oh, that was brilliant. The student trying to avoid ending a sentence with a preposition and getting the comeback, where are you from, stupid?
It perfectly illustrates how forced that rule can sound in real life. Ending sentences with prepositions is common. It's natural. And the source makes a key point. It's not just like lazy talk. It happens even in business and academic settings sometimes.
Absolutely. It's a feature of English structure, not really a mistake in most contexts anymore. So yeah, embracing these broken rules seems pretty key to sounding less like a textbook and more like a fluent speaker.
Definitely. Understanding that difference between formal writing and practical speaking is huge. Okay, let's switch gears then.
Right, onto the practical vocabulary, those top 50 questions and answers for real conversations.
This looks really useful, just equipping you with phrases for everyday interactions. Let's start with the first category, greetings. Obvious place to start, right?
The very beginning of any chat.
And your sources offer way more than just, how are you?
Yeah, we've got things like, how's your day going? You been doing okay?
How you been? That's a common one.
Yeah, what's new with you? What's new in your world? What's been going on? How's it going? What's up? How's everything going? Oh, and hey, you doing all right? Quite a list. It is. And what's good here is Noticing the slight differences, like, hey, you doing all right, often implies you might think the person doesn't look okay, shows a bit of concern.
That's a really good point. It's not just the words, but the implication. And the sample answers are helpful too. Like for, you've been doing okay, when the answer, it's been kind of a hard week, but it's getting better. That gives context.
Exactly. It's more informative than just fine. Or the example for, how's it going? When things aren't great, sometimes just saying it's going is enough. People understand that implies things are tough.
Right. It shows you how to give natural replies, not just ask the questions. Okay, so greetings are covered. What about keeping things flowing? Talking about plans seems key.
Definitely. What people are up to.
The source lists questions like, what are you up to today? Or just, what are you up to today? Home? Also, do you want to hang out later? You do anything fun this weekend? You got things fun planned?
Want to grab lunch later?
Yeah.
Classic.
Yep. Where are you headed? What you got going on this weekend? What are your plans for dinner? Are you going to be around later? And looking further ahead, have you decided where you're going on vacation?
It's a good mix, covering immediate plans, weekend stuff, future trips. Lots of ways to ask about someone's schedule or intentions.
And again, the example responses show you could do more than yes or no. Like if someone asks, want to grab lunch? Instead of just no, you can suggest an alternative like, actually, I brought lunch, but how about coffee later?
Exactly. Turns it into more of a conversation, opens up possibilities. It's about using these as springboards, not just data collection.
Right, building connection. Okay, another great way to connect is finding out about interests and hobbies. What questions do we have there?
This is always a good area for conversation.
Questions like, what do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah.
The follow-ups like, how long have you done that?
Ooh.
What got you into that?
What got you into that? This is a great one. Often leads to good stories.
Yeah. Also, maybe offering involvement. You want to try.
No.
Or more general. What are you into?
Yeah.
Asking for details. What's that like? Ooh, how'd you learn that?
And bringing in specifics, too.
Right, like, have you seen the latest Batman movie? Or have you read the book Atomic Habits? Culture references. And even practical requests like, I think I want to learn piano. Can you teach me?
It shows different levels, doesn't it? General questions, specific follow-ups, sharing related interests, even asking for help or instruction.
In the examples mentioned, making jewelry from recycled things, hiking, gardening, plus how people learned, like online videos or just trial and error. It makes it relatable.
Definitely helps move beyond surface chat. Okay, next category. Stuff around the house. Very practical, especially if you share a space.
Oh, yeah, these are super common. Can you help me with something? As you see my jacket.
Yeah.
And the classic follow-up, did you check the closet?
Happens all the time. Also, can you pass me the salt and pepper? Did you check the mail today? Have you fed the cats yet? So daily logistics.
Is it time for dinner? Would you rather fold laundry or put away the dishes? Maybe trying to avoid a chore there.
Maybe. And then, do I have to?
Yes. The source notes that one often comes with a whining tone, especially from kids.
It's a great detail, adds that layer of real-world context. And finally, will you hit the light, meaning turn it off or on?
It shows how much communication is just managing daily life together. These small interactions add up.
They really do. And understanding the nuance, like the tone of do I have to, is part of fluency too. Okay, final category, job or work. Important for professional context, but also just getting to know people.
For sure. Questions include, how's the project going? Are you working on anything fun? The standard, what do you do? Or what are you studying?
Then more reflective ones. What's your dream job? Practicalities. I'm looking for a job. Is your company hiring? What kind of work experience do you have?
Getting into preferences. What's your favorite part about your job? What's your least favorite part? Would you rather do manual labor or have a desk job? And duration. How long have you worked in education, for example?
It covers a good range: current work, aspirations, job hunting, personal feelings about work. Asking about favorite or least favorite parts can be quite revealing.
Yeah, and the examples, liking tech or working with people, disliking taxes or spreadsheets, give concrete ideas for answers. It provides a solid base for talking about professional life.
Absolutely. So, pulling all this together, we've looked at those rules that get bent and this big list of practical questions and answers. What's the real takeaway here for you, the listener?
I think becoming fluent is, well, it's more than just knowing grammar and words off a list.
Definitely. It's about understanding the rhythm and the flexibility of how people actually talk. It involves knowing when to use these set phrases and even when it's okay to be, technically incorrect according to very old rules.
Yeah, bridging that gap between the classroom structure and the fluid reality of conversation. So maybe think about which of those classroom rules you might still be sticking to really rigidly.
Could letting go of some of that formality actually make your spoken English sound, well, more natural? Could it boost your confidence?
It's a good question to ask yourself. And maybe try to actively use some of these questions and answers next time you're chatting in English.
Even just a new greeting or a different way to ask about someone's weekend, small changes can make a difference.
So the final thought to leave you with is this. How might really getting these subtle differences, understanding this flexibility in spoken English, how might that open up new levels of connection?
Yeah, how might it help you understand native speakers better and let you participate more fully, more confidently in those real-life conversations? Something to think about. Okay, so we've got this really interesting material you shared with us. It's basically a guide, right, for improving English conversations.
That's it. Yeah, it's a lesson that's, well, packed with practical tips. It looks at how English is really spoken day to day.
Which can be quite different from the classroom, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes very different.
Right. And that's kind of our mission here, isn't it? To pull out the absolute gold from this for you, the listener. We want to give you those aha moments, those quick insights so you feel more confident, more fluent, without wading through tons of theory.
Exactly. Quick but thorough. And the lesson covers some great ground. We're talking breaking grammar rules for fluency.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. And real-life phrases, common questions and answers for all sorts of situations, and even those sneaky time wasters in learning.
Okay, let's jump right into that first one then. Breaking classroom rules. That definitely caught my eye. The idea that sometimes to sound more natural, you actually need to bend the rules a bit.
It's a key point.
Yeah.
There's often this gap between formal textbook English and, well, how people actually chat.
Makes sense.
And the lesson gives some really clear examples.
Like the first one. To whom am I speaking? Which sounds super formal, maybe even a bit old-fashioned.
Definitely. You almost never hear that.
Right. And the lesson says you're much more likely to hear, who's this? Or maybe, who am I speaking with?
Exactly. And notice the who instead of whom in that last one. Technically wrong, according to the old rule.
But everyone says it.
Everyone says it. It's natural. It's direct. That formality of whom can actually, like, create distance. Clarity and ease often win out in spoken English.
Okay, that makes sense. Then what about there are a lot of problems versus there's a lot of problems?
Yes. So there are is correct with plural problems, right?
Right. Grammar 101.
But how often do you hear people say, there's problems? Or there's loads of people here.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. It uses the contraction there is, even with plurals. It's technically incorrect, but it's incredibly common in casual speech. It just flows better sometimes.
It's about the rhythm, isn't it?
Exactly. It's one of those shortcuts people take. Doesn't mean you forget the grammar, but you recognize how it's used.
Gotcha. Okay, another one was the subjunctive thing. If I were from France versus if I was from France.
Right. The subjunctive mood. So were is technically correct for hypotheticals.
If I were a rich man.
That sort of thing.
Precisely. But the lesson points out that if I was is used so frequently now in everyday speech.
So people just say, if I was.
Very often, yeah. Language changes, you know. The lesson even mentions the phrase, if I were you, and says that actually, if I was you is becoming just as common and accepted when giving advice. Like, I wouldn't do that if I was you.
Interesting. So even the exceptions are becoming less exceptional.
Kind of, yeah. It shows how usage shapes the language.
Okay, and then the past. Perfect. They had done something,
yeah.
Right? Yep. Like, before I started learning English, I thought it would be easy. That's the past perfect, shows an action before another past action. But in conversation, we often just simplify it. Before I started learning English, I thought it would be easy. Just the simple past.
Again, easier, quicker.
Usually gets the meaning across just fine in context. It's about efficiency in conversation.
Okay, but this one really stood out. Ending sentences with prepositions. We're always told, don't end a sentence with a preposition. The example was, in which car do you want to go?
Which sounds, well, a bit clunky, doesn't it?
Totally stiff. Compared to which car do you want to go in?
Which is completely natural. The lesson really hammers this home ending with a preposition is incredibly common, totally normal in spoken English.
That anecdote it mentions about the Harvard student.
Oh, yeah, trying to avoid the preposition and getting asked, where are you from, stupid? Because it sounded so unnatural.
It perfectly illustrates the point, doesn't it? Following that rule strictly can just sound weird.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's a big one. Forget that rule for everyday speech.
Okay, so the takeaway here is don't be too rigid with grammar if you want to sound natural. Let go of some of that formality.
Precisely. Be aware of the rules, but listen to how people actually speak.
Makes sense. Now, the lesson moves on to something super practical, these top 50 questions and answers.
Yeah, this section is great because it gives you ready-made chunks of language for different situations. Really useful.
It breaks them down into categories, right? Greetings, plans.
Yep. Greetings, plans, interests and hobbies, stuff around the house, and then job or work talk.
Let's maybe pull out a few examples just to give a flavor. From greetings.
Sure. So beyond just, how are you?
Yeah.
It suggests things like, how's your day going?
Yeah.
And it gives a really relatable answer for a tough day.
Yeah.
Just, it's going.
Oh, I like that. Acknowledges it without a big explanation.
Exactly. Or, hey, you doing all right? And it says, this is a good way to check in if someone seems a bit off. It shows you're paying attention.
Nice. Subtle. What about plans?
Okay, so common ones like, what are you up to today?
Hmm.
But also good examples of responses like, if you're busy, or do you want to hang out later? Followed by a kind of conditional yes, like, yeah, maybe if I finish my work.
Which is very realistic.
Totally.
Yeah.
And are you going to be around later? Just a simple way to see if someone's available to talk or meet up soon. Captures that real life back and forth.
Okay. Interests and hobbies.
Good conversation starters here.
Yeah.
Like the standard, what do you like to do in your free time? The lesson gives a specific example answer about making jewelry, which is great because specifics lead to more conversation.
Sure.
Or the more casual, what are you into?
Mm.
And I like the example, have you read the book Atomic Habits? It shows how you can bring up specific interests, like books, naturally.
Yeah, opens the door to deeper chat. How about around the house? These must be common.
Oh yeah, everyday stuff. Can you help me with something?
Yeah.
Simple, direct. Have you seen my jacket?
Yeah.
We've all been there. And a fun one. Would you rather fold laundry or put away the dishes? Injecting a bit of choice or humor.
Yeah.
And the very colloquial, will you hit the light? Meaning turn it on or off.
Hit the light, yeah. Very natural. Good one.
These little phrases just make your daily interactions smoother, you know?
Totally. And finally, job work.
Usual stuff like, how's the project going? Standard intros like, what do you do or what are you studying? Networking question. I'm looking for a job. Is your company hiring?
Yeah. Practical.
And one for maybe a slightly deeper chat. What's your least favorite part of your job?
Yeah.
Gets beyond the surface level.
So this whole section is really about giving you concrete phrases to use, actionable stuff.
Exactly. Moving from just rules to actual language you can deploy.
Okay, great. Now, the final part of the lesson tackles something crucial. Common time wasters in learning English. This really speaks to that desire you have as a listener to learn effectively.
Absolutely. Avoiding these pitfalls can save so much frustration and, well, time.
The first one mentioned is learning English without a plan, just sort of picking up bits and pieces randomly.
Right. A bit of vocab here, a phrasal verb there. The lesson argues it's just not efficient. Having some structure, even a simple one, helps you build knowledge systematically, makes progress clearer.
Stops you feeling like you're just drifting.
Exactly. Aimless learning is slow learning.
Time waster too. Just memorizing instead of truly learning.
Ah, the difference between cramming for a test and actually internalizing something so you can use it.
Right. Like knowing where's the bathroom isn't just about the words.
It's about knowing when to ask, how to ask politely, understanding the situation. Context is everything for real learning, for using it in your life. Short-term memory versus long-term usable knowledge.
Makes sense. Okay, number 3, not taking notes or using worksheets.
Yeah, the lesson brings up the connection between writing and memory. Actively writing things down, notes, exercises help solidify it in your brain.
You mentioned learning French, right? And finding notes helpful.
Oh, definitely. The physical act of writing helps process it. And you have something to look back at. It's more active than just listening or reading.
Okay. Time waster 4 is a big one. Perfectionism.
Huge.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest barrier for many people when it comes to actually speaking.
That fear of making mistakes, right. It stops you even trying.
Exactly. You waste so much time worrying instead of practicing. The advice is spot on. Start small. Describe objects around you. Make mistakes where it doesn't matter. Build confidence, bit by bit.
Embrace the mistakes as part of learning.
They're essential. Fluency comes from practice, not from waiting until you're perfect.
Which leads perfectly into the last time waster, waiting until English is good enough to start speaking.
Yes, that feeling of, oh, I need to know more before I can talk to people.
But the lesson argues, if you can understand this, what we're talking about now.
Then your English is good enough to start having some kind of conversation. Maybe simple ones, but you can start.
It suggests things like those Speak With Me videos where you practice responding.
Yeah, ways to get your mouth moving, get used to forming sentences, and setting a small goal like speak English once this week creates that little bit of pressure, that motivation.
Don't wait for good enough, basically. Start now.
Exactly. Speaking is how you get better at speaking. It's a skill built by doing.
Wow. Okay. This has been honestly such a practical deep dive. Lots of really concrete takeaways from that lesson.
It really is packed with useful stuff, bending grammar rules, real phrases, and avoiding those learning traps. A great mix.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about for your own learning. Which brings us to that final thought, that challenge question from the lesson.
Yes.
It asks you directly, are you a perfectionist? And how does that affect your willingness to actually speak English and, importantly, forgive yourself when you make mistakes?
That's a powerful question to reflect on, isn't it?
It really is. How much does that fear hold you back?
Yeah, and maybe thinking about those time wasters too. Do any of them ring true for you? Are you learning without a plan, or just memorizing, or waiting to be perfect?
Thinking about how maybe, just maybe, trying some of these ideas, being okay with mistakes, speaking even when it's not perfect, having a bit more structure could make your learning journey, well, better, more effective, maybe even more fun.
Absolutely. It's all about finding what works and getting you talking more confidently.
Well, here's to you doing just that. More confident, more fluent English conversations ahead. Welcome to the deep dive. So you've sent us some really interesting stuff, all focused on improving English conversation skills, making things sound more natural.
Yeah, it looks like the goal is to bridge that gap between textbook English and, how people actually talk.
Exactly. We've got sources talking about like classroom rules that maybe you shouldn't always follow for fluency, and also a whole load of really useful questions and answers for everyday situations.
Greetings, plans, hobbies, that kind of thing.
Right. So our mission today is basically to unpack all this, pull out the practical tips, and really help you sound more confident and fluent when you're chatting in English.
Let's do it. It's less about strict grammar policing and more about understanding the flow, the common shortcuts people take, getting comfortable, essentially.
Okay, so first up, this idea of breaking, or maybe just bending, some of those classroom English rules, this is fascinating.
It really is. Language evolves, right? And conversation values efficiency and, well, ease of use sometimes over perfect grammatical structure.
So rule number one that often gets, let's say, reconsidered is asking who's on the phone. You might have learned very formally, to whom am I speaking?
Oh, yeah. The super formal version. Sounds like something from an old movie, doesn't it?
Totally. Our source points out it's correct, sure, but just sounds, well, a bit stiff in most calls today.
Way too formal. Instead, you're much, much more likely to hear someone say, who am I speaking with?
Or even just, who's this, if it's an unknown number.
Exactly. Who am I speaking with? That's probably the most standard, natural-sounding way. And who's this is perfectly fine, very direct, gets the job done.
And this is the kicker, right? The source highlights that who am I speaking with technically breaks another rule, ending with a preposition with.
Ah, yes. The infamous preposition rule.
I was always told that was a big no-no. Is that rule just gone now?
Well, it's not gone, especially in very formal writing. But in spoken English, it's relaxed a lot. Who am I speaking with just flows better. It sounds natural, and that often trunks the old rule.
Interesting. Okay, rule 2. Using there is and there are, we learn there are a lot of problems. Plural noun, plural verb. Makes sense.
Standard grammar, absolutely. Our matches problems. But, and this is a big but in spoken English.
You hear there's all the time, even when it's followed by something plural, like there's a lot of problems.
Exactly. It's incredibly common. Technically, it should be there are, but the contraction theirs is just so easy and quick to say.
I do it. I never even really thought about it being wrong. It just slips out.
And that's the point. It's a feature of spoken fluency. The contraction often dominates because it's efficient. It's not correct by the book, but it's completely normal and understood in everyday chat.
Huh. Okay, rule 3 is the subjunctive. The example is, if I were from France, I would speak French. That sounds quite proper.
It is proper. That were is the subjunctive mood used for hypothetical or unreal situations. It's the grammatically precise form.
But what do people actually say?
Much more often you'll hear, if I was from France, I would speak French.
If I was? Yeah, that just feels more, I don't know, normal. even though I know were is supposed to be right for hypotheticals.
It does feel more normal to many native speakers. Again, it seems the simpler, more common past tense form was often replaces the subjunctive were in casual speech. Ease of use winning again.
Seems to be a pattern.
Although the source did note an interesting exception for warnings like, I wouldn't do that if I were you, or if I was you.
Ah, both are common there.
Yeah, in that specific phrase, both was and were are used pretty interchangeably. It's a funny little quirk.
Good to know. So sometimes the wrong way is just as common or even more common.
Pretty much. It's about recognizing what you'll actually encounter out there.
Okay, number 4. The past perfect tense. Like, before I started learning English, I had thought it was impossible. Very precise timing.
Right. The had thought clearly places that thought before the action of starting to learn. It maps out the past timeline very clearly.
But again, in regular conversation.
People often simplify. You're more likely to hear. Before I started learning English, I thought it was impossible.
Yeah.
Just a simple past.
Yeah, that sounds less constructed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The context usually makes the timeline clear enough. Why use a more complex tense when the simple past does the job? Spoken language often favors simplicity.
Makes sense. And the last one, Rule 5. The classic, don't end a sentence with a preposition. The example given is, in which car do you want to go?
Oh, that sounds so awkward, doesn't it?
It really does. Very formal, almost unnatural.
Like someone's trying too hard to follow a rule they read somewhere.
Compared to the totally normal, which car do you want to go in? Preposition right at the end. Sounds fine.
That's perfectly natural.
Yeah.
And the source had that great little anecdote
Yeah.
about the Harvard student correcting someone.
Well, yeah. Someone ends a sentence with a preposition, the student points it out, and the first person replies,
Where are you from, stupid? Or something like that.
Yeah. It just perfectly shows how sticking too rigidly to that rule can sound, well, silly or even rude compared to just communicating clearly.
It really does hammer the point home. Natural flow and clarity are usually key. And the source even says ending with prepositions is common now, even in business settings.
So that rule is definitely one you can relax about in conversation.
For sure. Being understood is more important than adhering to that particular stylistic guideline when you're just talking.
Okay, great stuff on the rules. Now let's shift to the second big part. This list of top 50 questions and answers. This looks incredibly practical, like actual phrases you can use.
Yeah, this is gold, I think. It gives you ready-made chunks of language for different common scenarios, real building blocks for conversation.
So they broke it down into categories. First up, greetings. And it's way more than just, how are you? We've got, how's your day going? You've been doing okay. How you been?
Mm-hmm. What's new with you? What's new in your world?
What's been going on? How's it going? What's up?
Classic casual one. Right. How's everything going? Or sometimes just, how's everything?
And hey, you doing all right? That's quite a list. Just having variety makes you sound more natural, I suppose.
Definitely. And they each carry a slightly different nuance. What's up is super informal, pals talking. How's your day going? Maybe a bit more general, work colleague perhaps.
And that last one, hey, you doing all right? The source mentioned using that if someone looks maybe a bit down or unwell.
Yeah, it's a nice, slightly more concerned way to check in. Shows you're paying attention.
And the responses are key too, like for, you've been doing okay, instead of just fine. An example is, it's been kind of a hard week, but it's getting better. Gives a bit more info.
Right, or for, how's it going? Yeah, if things aren't great, the response, it's going, was mentioned.
Yeah. Sort of a subtle way to say meh without complaining.
Exactly. It acknowledges things aren't perfect, but keeps it brief. It's about those conversational nuances, offering just enough information.
Okay, next category. Questions about plans. Loads here too. What are you up to today? Or the faster, what are you up to today?
Very common. Then things like, do you want to hang out later? You doing anything fun this weekend?
You got anything fun planned? Want to grab lunch later? Where are you headed? If you see someone seemingly going somewhere specific.
What you got going on this weekend? What are your plans for dinner? Are you going to be around later?
And a longer term one. Have you decided where you're going on vacation? Lots of social invitations or feelers here.
Totally. They're about connecting, coordinating, and notice the contractions and dropped words in the casual versions, what you up to.
Yeah.
That's really how it sounds.
Yeah, very typical. And the example responses showed how to do more than just say yes or no, like suggesting salad instead of heavy lunch. Keeps the ball rolling.
Exactly. Offers alternatives, keeps the interaction moving.
Okay, then interests or hobbies. These are great for actually getting to know someone. What do you like to do in your free time?
The classic opener. Followed by things like, how long have you done that? or what got you into that shows real interest.
Right. Also, you want to try, maybe if you're doing your hobby. What are you into? More general. What's that like?
How'd you learn that? Good follow-up. Then more specific ones like, have you seen the latest Batman movie? Or have you read the book Atomic Habits?
Connecting over shared culture. And even, I think I want to learn piano. Can you teach me? A direct request.
It covers a lot of ground, from general inquiries to specific follow-ups. And the source examples were good, like making jewelry from recycled stuff or learning gardening via YouTube. Concrete details make conversations richer.
Definitely. Okay, next. Questions around the house. Super practical, everyday stuff. Can you help me with something? Classic.
Uh-huh. Have you seen my jacket? Did you check the closet? The inevitable follow-up.
Yes. Can you pass me the salt and pepper? Did you check the mail today? Have you fed the cats yet?
It's time for dinner. And the choice question, would you rather fold laundry or put away the dishes?
Always a tough one. And the classic kid response, do I have to?
Yep, usually with a bit of a whine, as the source noted.
And will you hit the light? Meaning turn it off or on. These are just the nuts and bolts of sharing a living space.
Absolutely. Functional, direct communication needed for daily life. And that note about the tone of, do I have to, is a good reminder how you say something matters.
For sure. Okay, last category. Job or work? Or studies, if applicable. How's the project going?
Good check-in. Are you working on anything fun? What do you do, or what are you studying? The basic info question.
What's your dream job? I'm looking for a job. Is your company hiring? More direct, functional?
What kind of work experience do you have? What's your favorite part about your job? And the flip side.
What's your least favorite part of your job? Always interesting.
Definitely. Would you rather do manual labor or have a desk job? And how long have you worked in education or whatever the field is?
These really cover the professional side of life, understanding what people do with a large chunk of their time.
Right. And the examples given, like liking the people part of a job but not the paperwork, or being into tech, those are relatable things that help build connection, finding common ground.
So yeah, looking back at all this, the grammar rule tweaks and these practical questions, it really paints a picture of how spoken English works day to day. It's often, well, looser than the textbook version.
It really is. And understanding that, accepting it is kind of liberating, isn't it? It helps you relax and focus on communication rather than perfection.
It definitely makes you pause and think, am I clinging too tightly to some rule I learned, making myself sound maybe a bit too formal or unnatural?
This whole deep dive kind of gives you permission to adopt some of these more natural patterns, to sound more like the native speakers you hear.
And using some of these questions and answers seems like a really concrete step you can take. Just try weaving one or two into your next conversation. See how it feels.
Absolutely. Practice is key. Trying out these phrases, getting comfortable with the rhythm and flow of real spoken English.
So maybe a final thought for you to consider based on all this. How might really getting a feel for these sort of subtle differences in spoken English, the bent rules, the common phrases, how might that actually unlock deeper connections and better understanding when you talk with native speakers, going beyond just words to how people really communicate?